Hi, everyone. Thanks so much for joining. I know we are almost at the top of the hour, so we will let everyone start trickling in. But as everyone is getting in, we really appreciate you being here. A couple of housekeeping items. Yes, this is being recorded. Yes, you will get the recording out to you. And I'm going to speak for Allison, but we always twins, and so we almost have the same brain. Yes, you can have the slides when we are all done. So thanks so much for joining us. As everyone is trickling in, I know we are almost to 4th of July. I think it may be my favorite holiday. I know a lot of people fight about this. Christmas is always top of mind, but 4th of July is my favorite. So I'd love to hear in the comments or Q&A box what you guys are doing. But Allison, Patrick, any fun 4th of July plans?
Well, we normally, and hi everyone, welcome. We're so excited to be here today. But yeah, I have a couple days off, and myself, my sister, and her kids all head east to my mom's house. They've got a pool. We just kind of hang out, grill, and play with the kids at the pool. So laid back, but the weather looks like it's going to be great. And always nice to have a long weekend to add on that Friday to the Thursday off.
Yes.
So, how about you, Patrick?
Yeah, honestly, it's gonna be low key. Just really enjoying time away, time off. Not being in client meetings like I'm usually most weeks, and just really shutting off the computer for a few days is gonna be the key thing. So
Yeah, and
keep it simple.
I probably eat like my body weight in barbecued hot dogs. It's the only day of the year, unless we're at a baseball game, that I will eat hot dogs. So I really, really look forward to those barbecued hot dogs.
There you go.
So I think the number of folks trickling in is slowing down. So I think we're going to get this kicked off. So thank you again, everyone, for joining us. My name is Tori Hoppy. I am head of partnerships over at Holistiplan, and I am joined today by Patrick Rogers, advisor at, I'm going to butcher this,
So Smart Pro Financial.
Smart
Yeah.
Pro. I want to say Smart Advisors, which again, you are a smart advisor, but I practiced that and practiced it, and I still got it wrong. And Allison Susko, head of community over at Asset-Map. So thank you both for joining me. I'm really excited. If you guys haven't heard the news, or you're kind of you signed up on the whim for this webinar, Holistiplan and Asset-Map have launched an integration together. We are so excited. This has been a long time coming. I've been at Holistiplan now a little over 2 years, and this was one of the integrations that I was really excited to get going for advisors. We were very intentional about what we built for you, so that is why it took us a little while to get this done. So we wanted to make sure we were bringing an integration that you, the advisors, were really using. So we're excited to kind of talk through that. Show you guys how the two products are working together. And then Andrew's going to follow up with Patrick, I'm sorry, some examples of how he's already using it. He got a little bit early access, not by much, I think few days before everyone else did, but he's already implemented it into his practice. So I think Allison is going to kick us off with a few fun slides, and we'll go from there.
That's right. Thank you so much, Tori, and thank you, Patrick, for being here. Tori, just interrupt me if I have a screen share that isn't working, but hopefully you see our faces here. And again, thanks to Patrick for joining us, a joint subscriber of Asset-Map and Holistiplan. So we're super excited to really have him kind of be the main event in a few minutes to talk about, really how initially, even during our prep call last week, Patrick was able to kind of get the integration launched up in no time and see some, really key things that he could implement using the integration into his client meetings. And that's really what it's all about. I want to give a shout out to my colleague over at Asset-Map for this great title as well. We've gotten some viral comments on social media about why so taxing? So it was a real nice play on words here for our webinar today. That being said, we like to keep things fun, keep it interesting and educational. So if you have any questions, if you have any comments, please throw them in the Q&A, and we're happy to address some of those at the end of the call today. And we'll give you some really good ways to get in touch with us as well at the end if you have any further questions or are interested in any kind of demos, and also some great discounts that we can tell you about. So all of that being said, why did we do this? Tori mentioned that we've been talking about doing this integration between Asset-Map and Holistiplan for, many months, if not a couple of years. And from our perspective over at Asset-Map, and I'm going to take a few minutes here, or take a few minutes in shortly to tell you a little bit about what Asset-Map's all about if you're not familiar with us. And Tori will do the same with Holistiplan. But, you know, really we're all about having good conversations, visual financial planning at Asset-Map, and making sure that we're keeping the clients engaged in the conversation, because we all know engaged clients are going to make better decisions. And, you know, Asset-Map is just really the best system I've ever seen of level setting during meetings, really uncovering great opportunities for you as the financial professionals, and keeping the clients really engaged in the conversation and not getting overwhelmed with, you know, how important those financial conversations can be. So when we get questions at Asset-Map like, hey, are you ever going to get any deeper into tax planning, for instance? We thought, you know what makes a lot of sense? Let's partner with who does it best. And Holistiplan does it best when it comes to tax planning. We didn't want to necessarily go down the road of, you know, trying to recreate the wheel that they've already done so well. But why not partner with who's doing it better than anybody else? And that's really kind of why we decided to work together as our two companies was, you know, the ability to pull up that amazing Holistiplan tax data right in an Asset-Map report when you're in the meeting. And we feel like that is just a killer combination to have a more holistic conversation with your clients about what matters most. And tax absolutely matters in the conversation. So it was a no-brainer for us. And we really wanted to make sure that we're giving the advisors the tools during the meeting to do what they do best, which is advise their clients and talk about what's the most important. Tori, is there anything you'd add from Holistiplan's perspective about, you know, why we really decided to go down this path together?
Yeah, and I think again the title, as much as we had so much fun on wordplay, it is truly like it is really taxing for clients and advisors to get all this data in one spot. And the asset map makes it so clear for the client to understand where everything is. It was a no-brainer to add their tax planning needs to that map, right? So being able to just be in one spot, have all of that data, and we'll get there's a little bit of a sneak peek or an Easter egg here to just kind of show you what we are offering on the integration, but being able to have that quick snapshot of the tax planning needs of the client right there in your client's asset map was a huge benefactor. And again, we know that this is version 1 of this integration. So there are iterations to come, but we just really wanted the impact to be felt right out the gate when this was launched. So I love how our teams were so thoughtful about the information that's being pulled over and very concise on where the placement is on the map as well.
That's great. No, I totally agree. And let's keep it going. So I'm just going to take a couple of minutes to familiarize you with Asset-Map if you're not already either subscribing or if you know what we're all about. Asset-Map's been around for a little over a decade, and we fall into that financial planning category that we all know and love. So being able to work with your clients to find out what kind of decisions they could be making, meeting their goals in the future, but doing it in a really easy and concise way. So it's not taking up all of your time, and making sure, again, that the clients are staying with you on that topic. So what is Asset-Map? We feel like we're really allowing advisors to deliver advice at speed, also increase trust with your clients right off the bat. And I'm going to tell you how we're doing that. And also, of course, scale your business. So we know that these topics, these financial planning engagements can be very time consuming. And we've really figured out a great way over at Asset-Map to just take a few minutes to let your clients know if they're making good decisions and if they're on track for their goals. So we're really excited to give you a little more information about this. You know, we find that we're seeing a lot of financial professionals running into the same issues. And I'm here at a conference actually this week. I'm out at the Morningstar conference, and I've had some of these same exact conversations just today at our booth. And, you know, it's things like, it takes me a long time to get to a place with my clients where I really feel like we're meshing, like we're having a great conversation and they trust me. And we really feel like with Asset-Map, we're getting to that place of credibility faster because we're asking really good questions, and it allows the clients to understand that we're in it for their best interest. And I think that's super, super important. Another thing we hear pretty frequently is the deliverables are sometimes so complex, really, really complicated charts, graphs, long reports that you might hand over to your client and they think, well, this is great, but I'm never really going to be perusing through this going forward. So you could just file it away from me. That would be just fine. We want to give them, some deliverables, some reports that they really enjoy and that they might even want to show their spouse who maybe couldn't make it to the meeting and make sure that they're on the same page, even within their own family, about their finances. And finally, being able to scale advice to all of your clients. How many of us have thought, I really wish that I could, work with the client who has a couple products with me and I could give them better advice at scale. I just don't have time to work with all of them at the level I'd like to. So being able to really give good advice to your full book of business is definitely another issue that we hear about from time to time. And, we feel like we're tackling that over at Asset-Map, and that's really, really important to us. So where are we impactful? And, we're certainly going to be talking a lot about these things today through the integration, but, we're really great in that initial fact-finding phase. Again, that's getting us to that place of trust fast because we're asking the right questions and finding out what's really important to the client and their financial decisions. Another time that it's really, really vital to pull up that great visual of Asset-Map is during times of recommendation and advice. Can you think of any time that's more important that your client is following along with what's, on your mind and what you're proposing to them than during times that you're asking that they might be making a change or opening up a new account? It's really important for them to be following along during those types of meetings. And finally, ongoing engagement. One of my favorite places that Asset-Map pops up is always during the annual review. And I think that's something that Patrick's going to talk about today, and also that you'll see when we're thinking about Holistiplan and those updated tax returns every single year. Pop that up during the annual review in the Asset-Map, and you'll be able to see what's changed, what we might want to plan for next year. So ongoing engagement, super, super important. So just a couple more slides before I pass it over to Tori, but there's really 3 ways to get data into Asset-Map. And certainly today we're going to be talking about integrations, but we also have some great things like direct to client fact finders. And even when we say manually, I don't want that to scare anyone because, and maybe I'll ask Patrick as well when we pull him back up on screen, but manually is really meant to be during that interaction, that interview process when you're meeting with your clients, not necessarily you just typing in data entry, but having a conversation and making sure that map is reflecting it is what we mean by manually. And then again, of course, the integrations. So just a little bit of a visual about the direct to client fact finder. We're going to be able to send your clients a link that says, hey, tell us a little bit more about yourself before you come into the meeting. And that's what's getting us to that place of trust, that credibility. They're able to tell you a little bit about themselves before they even come into their first meeting, whether they be prospects or new clients. They are able to kind of say what's on their mind and what's really important to them, and also what their family looks like before you even meet with them. So you're able to ask those really valuable questions right off the bat based on what they've given you some insight into. If you were to click that QR code on the left, that would literally take you to the client experience. So you could even see it for yourself. Super, super user-friendly. And we get great results getting those asset maps filled out ahead of time. We have a nice list of integrations, and a lot of these can layer on super, super nicely with Holistiplan. So we're going to talk about how that integration works in just a couple minutes. Of course, that's the main event. But think about how impactful it would be if you were even to say, we could talk about nitrogen and Holistiplan all in the same asset map report and have a really, really holistic conversation about what's going on, not only with tax, not only with financial planning, but maybe we want to talk about risk as well. They're all going to layer in super nicely. But again, today, Holistiplan is the main topic. So let me jump to one more thing. There's a lot of features within Asset-Map that I'm not going to have a ton of time to cover today, and our teams are absolutely happy to walk you through it if you're interested. But we talked a bit about that discovery interview. Have your client tell you more about themselves before they come into the meeting. We also have some pretty great features that are going to support what you're trying to do in your meetings and also with your financial planning and making it really conversational. Things like maybe you want to build some templates. You don't want to have to recreate the wheel every time you're building a new asset map. You can actually put what we call stencils on the asset map to kind of say, here's a starting point. Let's use this as our visual fact finder to find out more about this client in a meeting, but not have to just keep adding over and over again. We can build custom stencils to really kind of have that starting point ready to go when you're talking to your clients. Another thing I might highlight quickly today is our newest feature called drafts, which, maybe we want to make some recommendations to a client about what changes they might make, but before I make it part of their actual asset map. We now have almost a what if type asset map that you could say, let's present this to the client, see if they're on the same page as us and they agree, and then we'll make it part of their actual asset map report. A couple other things, we can absolutely run some algorithms behind the scenes once you have your fully built out asset map to say, where are there some opportunities for conversation with my clients to see if anything might pop up that could set their finances sideways. What we call signals is a way to say, we have all this great data now in our application. Let's make it work for us and see what conversations we might want to have with our clients that they might be at risk for if they don't make some decisions. And finally, target maps. We have some planning built into the system that is going to allow you to tell your clients quickly and effectively if they're on track for their goals. So I wanted to give you an idea about what we're all about if you're not super familiar. And again, we'll talk about how you can contact us more later, but I'm going to pass it over to Tori. Stop sharing. She'll give some insight into Holistiplan, and then we will pop up the integration and chat with Patrick.
Yeah, thanks, Allison.
Sure.
So if you didn't know what Holistiplan is, we are a financial planning software, tax planning software for financial advisors. So what you would do, and I've got my household up here just so we can quickly go through this. This is going to be the clients that we're working with today between Asset-Map and Holistiplan. So we allow you, the advisor, to upload the client's tax return into our system. So you can see you upload the return, choose the year that you're going to upload, click the year, drag and drop. You're going to get this little cycle down here. It's going to tell you where it is in the process. And in about 45 seconds, you are going to get a report of all that data in the client's return. So this is customizable. You're able to add your disclosures, logos, all of that good stuff. You're able to map this over if you are a Wealthbox or Redtail user into their client dashboard on that end. But as you see, we have all this data now in a really concise, easy way to start that tax planning conversation with your client. It's going to tell you where they land in the marginal tax bracket. It's going to tell you their modified adjusted gross income tiers, if they're over under that number for them. Just a lot of data now at the fingertips for you to go over with the tax planning needs for your client. Medicare Part B and D premiums, especially as your clients are getting closer to retirement age, this becomes really important. Itemized deductions. The Schedule B income source is always a fun one for me. I am a total nerd and love examples. So when I started at Holistiplan, I plugged in my own return as I'm learning the software. And lo and behold, there was a Fidelity account that popped up in this income source. And it happened to be an old 401k from a job that rolled over when I left that job. When you're young, you have no idea. All I was told, again, put into your 401k. I didn't know what happened after I left that job. So we were able to actually find that account, contact Fidelity, and actually get it under management with my advisor. So always love to tell that story because that's just one little thing as an advisor when you're plugging these in that you kind of start to find during the process of going through their return. The tax planning really starts, or the conversation really starts with these observations. My observations are going to be different than everyone on this call because our returns are not the same. So these observations are the items that you get to go now get to go through with your client to decide what is best for them for their tax planning needs. Once you've decided on what you want to model out, you then use our scenario analysis tool to model those pieces out for you. The scenario analysis, think about it as your planning, your portfolio planning tool, right? You go in to an e-money of the world and you're going to build out different portfolio options for your client to take a look at to decide what's best for them, for their needs and wants. That is exactly what our scenario analysis tool does. You, the advisor, get to plan out different tax planning scenarios for them to decide what they want to take advantage of. So that's the tax planning scenario side of things. I do want to show you kind of our integrations page, because this is where we're going to really start to kick off the reveal, if you must, of the integration with Asset-Map. So you can start in either or. You can either start in Asset-Map, or if you're already in Holistiplan and you want to enable the integration, you do have to enable the integration in both platforms. So just know that if you do get an error at first, it's not working, make sure that you have enabled in both spots. So here in Holistiplan, you're going to toggle over settings, go to integrations, and you guys can see our integration page here as well. And you're going to scroll down to the Asset-Map one and see mine is as currently disabled. And you're going to quickly toggle that on to enabled. And then you are going to get into your Asset-Map account and then enable it from there. So I will stop sharing and let Allison kind of kick it off on their end to get us going to show that integration.
That sounds great. So we keep it super simple at Asset-Map, just like everything we do with our integrations. We don't want it to take you a long time. Patrick, how long did it take you to set up the integration last week?
I think it was a solid 17 seconds. Yeah, it wasn't too bad.
Thank you. 17 seconds. So if you all can spare 17 seconds to have some really great data at your fingertips, I think it's going to be quick and easy. So I'm going to share my screen. You couldn't have answered that any better, that we did not prepare for that. I'm back in Asset-Map. This is our live platform. So you're seeing behind the scenes of what's going on here. And we're going to be looking at the professors today. This is the household that I have linked up to the integration with Holistiplan. So on the Asset-Map side, Tori just gave a great oversight into how to make sure that this is going to pull over for you. And it's just that tiny toggle on the Holistiplan side. And then when you come into Asset-Map and you go to your kind of picture, your firm picture on the top right-hand side of Asset-Map, you're going to go down to integrations, just 3 down there. And you're going to see I have a whole bunch kind of ready to go in my Asset-Map account. But you can see here that Holistiplan is active. Now, if you were activating it for the first time, we're not going to turn this into a training session, but just for a minute, you can see that I don't have, for instance, Google Drive. I don't have that activated. All you have to do to activate the Holistiplan integration, or really any of Asset-Map's integrations, is click activate. It's going to ask you for your username and password to that particular technology. And that's going to open up that pipeline for you to be able to pull in any of the clients that you've uploaded tax returns for into Holistiplan right into either a new Asset-Map household or an existing Asset-Map household. So like I said, this one's really cool. Let's say you love to use a nitrogen integration. I'll just use the same example. And you have a lot of households loaded up into Asset-Map, and they're also linked up to nitrogen. You're pulling in investments. You're looking at the risk score. You can layer Holistiplan right on and be able to have that key tax facts loaded right into an existing client as well. So you can start from scratch with someone new, or you can load it up to an existing household. Now, when you're ready to have this pipeline open, you're ready, you put your username and password in, and you're ready to add a household, you're going to go to the house on the top left-hand side, add household. And then if I go to integrations, I'm going to see the ones that I now have at my fingertips to go ahead and use. These are ones that I've typed in my username and password, and I'm ready to load them up whenever I want. And I click on Holistiplan. It's super, super simple. I can type in a client's last name. I can click this little magnifying glass and it'll search any single client that I have tax returns for in Holistiplan. But we're going to type in professor. No judgment on my typing today. And I'm going to hit the little item there. And I have a couple different options. I want to tell you about which one is which. Peter Professor is someone who I've already loaded in a tax return for. And you can see Paula Professor, it still has import. If you see view, it's going to take you right to that household that already has the information loaded up. If you see import, it's going to add something new and then include that information in Asset-Map. So for today's purposes, we're just going to go to view and go right to the professors. But if it's someone who you'd like to load in for the first time, it will say import. All right. So now we're on our home page for this household that includes the Holistiplan integration. I am going to open up our Asset-Map report. And I can see here, it's pretty little, but there's a kind of a little symbol to the left of Peter Professor. And that means that it's a linked up account. That means that we have Peter, in this case, linked up to Holistiplan. Now, if I click on his name and go to, you can now see there's a little Holistiplan logo right within that member household. It's going to refresh real quick and look at that. Now, right within our asset map, we can see all kinds of key tax facts that have pulled over from the tax return into Holistiplan. And you can see this is our 2023 tax return. You'll also notice household last synced, and this is kind of the last training type item that I'm going to include, but you can always sync up a household. Now with Holistiplan, you're going to want to sync this when? After you upload a new tax return. So when you get everything all set for 2024 tax season, you can come into Asset-Map, click refresh, and it'll pull in that latest and greatest tax return that you've put into Holistiplan. So you always know you have the last one that you've loaded up. But this is really where we started with Patrick last week. So I'm going to bring him back into the conversation before we take some questions. And, you know, he initially saw kind of some really great ways that he can include this information into his meetings with his clients using Asset-Map and Holistiplan. So Patrick, a couple questions for you. You know, just take a couple minutes if you don't mind. Tell us a little bit about yourself, your firm, and you know, really how you're already using Holistiplan and Asset-Map respectively, if you don't mind.
Yeah, for sure. So I've been in the industry for this fall will be about 8 years. First got in with a captive insurance BD, and got licensed as a financial professional on the investment side. A few months after I first got started out in the business. My background's actually mechanical engineering, and I did a career transition because honestly, I felt like there was a big gap in our market. I know everybody talks about, you know, there's average age of advisors 57 or 58 years old. I hope some of those guys are on this call right now learning about these tools because it definitely helps out with the business here. But really, there's just a need for us to be able to provide easy, quick, actionable, engaged advice to our clients so we can help people make progress in their path. So a company I'm with is called Smart Pro Financial. We are the largest provider of Dave Ramsey SmartVestor Pros nationwide, and we really thrive off of helping people get hope for their future and make sure that they have a clear, confident picture of where they stand so we can make those better decisions going forward. In terms of using these tools right now, Asset-Map is my main go-to technology platform. You know, I pay for some other higher end planning tools that do the cash flow projections and all that kind of stuff. But when I think about my day-to-day, when I like log into my computer and I start out with, you know, preparing for a client meeting or getting, you know, in the client meeting or even doing afterward kind of information, Asset-Map is what I log into because I'm able to use it as a data collector, you know, even in my intro call process or my discovery session process, send out that link so people can fill it out and give me initial information on a high level, and then use that as the position to have that collaborative guided conversation as we start to develop more of that relationship and start to build that credibility and really build that trust, like you mentioned before, to be able to further people along the process to ultimately take action on their own future. Holistiplan has played a huge role in that as well. I should add, I've been with Asset-Map for probably 4 years now. And then Holistiplan, we got linked up with them about maybe 9 or 12 months ago. And I've really incorporated that into the bigger picture planning side, where we think about, you know, the Asset-Map is for me kind of like the living balance sheet. It's a living net worth statement as well as cash flow statement for a lot of my clients. But there was some pieces that were missing in terms of having that core data that we can actually work with to make those engaged decisions around tax planning, investment decisions, things like that. So we added on Holistiplan to be able to have more of that real information, real tax planning data, and be able to make important decisions like, you know, should we do a Roth contribution or backdoor Roths, or, you know, modeling out donor advised fund contributions for inherited or IRAs. Business sale transactions where we're trying to offset, you know, capital gains or ordinary income, various things like that. So for me, when I saw this as an opportunity to link these two together, this is not a sales pitch, but this is just my honest thoughts, right? Is like having all the information in one place so I could just easily operate and not have to go back and forth between these different platforms was a major value add. I don't know if that's everything you want to say right now or
Yeah, no.
Yeah.
No, I appreciate that. That's great. And I know we're both companies are thrilled to have you as a client, and you absolutely are kind of using it the way I would expect. So that's very cool. As I mentioned a few minutes ago, we met with Patrick about a week and a half ago to give him a sneak peek of the integration right after it was launched, and then also to see if what we thought about what we could talk about with you all today on this webinar, and how Patrick could look at some of these key facts that we really took a lot of time between our two teams, because clearly Holistiplan has more data and more facts than just these 10 or so. But we really thoughtfully decided to add these particular ones between our two teams for a multitude of reasons. And three of them really came out pretty quickly in our conversation. So Patrick, I'm going to start. Let's start with, what we talked about. And I thought it was really, really interesting. So this is really where things get cool for you guys to listen in on. When you talked about kind of working with your clients and how income works into the conversation, and how you're really seeing how this might help you out in those chats.
Yeah, for sure. So one of my core foundational beliefs in the financial planning space is that cash flow drives everything. Like how you manage the margin in your life will ultimately be a direct indicator of how successful you are in terms of building your net worth, stagnating your net worth, or ultimately declining your net worth over time. So I always start at income with my clients. And whenever I have a new prospect introductory call where they fill out the asset map ahead of time and we're walking through that together, I want to validate what type of income they have and what the source of income that is and what the actual amount is. And what I mean by that is we've all heard the phrase like garbage in, garbage out, right? A tool, a computer, a process, all that is only as good as the data that goes into it. So one of the things that I've seen with a lot of people over the past several years is some people don't really know exactly what they make. They might only know about what they're actually bringing in on a monthly basis, what their biweekly paycheck is, things like that. So when I first looked at this example, or we started talking about this feature, the first thing that came to my mind was, let's validate what our actual income is. Because there's a lot of things that can play into that, right? You can have, what is my actual W-2 earnings? Do I have 1099 earnings? Do I have that passive interest? Like if I'm sure a lot of us on the call have clients that they've got a couple $100,000 in high yield savings accounts or money markets that did have 20, 30, $40,000 in interest this past year, which shot their income up and ultimately affected other things we can do planning wise. So when we think about the professors right here, looking at their data, we can see on the asset map on both sides, on the left-hand side, Peter, he's claimed $80,000 in income. Paula, she's claimed $100,000 a year in income. But if we look at the key facts and key figures here, we can see their total income is actually listed as $234,650, which means we're going from 180, what they think it is or what they're claiming, add another almost $55,000 on top of that. So to me, it's all about how can we start out by validating what the actual numbers are we're working with. And I can keep going from there if you want me to.
Oh, yeah. Tori, is there anything you want to add? I saw you come off mute. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I think it's so important to just uncover these tiny but impactful things for your clients, right? The clients think that their total net income is 180,000, but when they actually file taxes, when you're thinking about your total income, it was actually the 240 and change, right? So that has a huge impact on their way of thinking. They are thinking that they are at one net worth and they're actually at something else, right? So being able to open up that conversation and be like, hey, you guys think that you're at this dollar value, but in reality, you're actually being taxed at this, let's open up the dialogue from there.
Yeah. And I think
we talk so much, Patrick, before I pass it back over to you, we talk so much about, having, and you brought it up a bit, right? Having technology really support what the advisors are doing, what they do best, which is you're the experts, you're the financial professionals who have gone through the training to become someone who can really drive success for your clients and good decision making. And having the tools support those conversations but allow you to take it in the direction you want, we find so important at Asset-Map. We don't want the technology to take over. We are very much just a supporting technology for what advisors do best, which is exactly what you just said.
Yeah, and that's I appreciate that. That's exactly what I want to reiterate as well is, it really is a matter of an extension of efficiency for the competency we already have. And whenever I talk or speak in front of other advisors, training them for our company, I always focus on the competency piece. Like this should be a way that we can uncover those little things like Tori said. Like great example on the Holistiplan page, it did show the different income sources. So for me, what I would say is, well, hey, they claim 180 here, and I see their total income is 134. Now I need to go and do some more digging to figure out, well, they had $10,000 in interest or dividends or cap gains. Maybe they have stock options, and they don't think about the stock options because it's not really income that they think about or an asset they think about, but they are getting taxed on it, right? And these are all the things that help us with the bigger picture of planning, which I'll note something towards one of the questions that was asked around tax planning. There's a difference between tax planning and tax advice, right? Tax planning is talking about strategy, big picture. Advice is, say, do this with this now kind of thing. From the tax planning side, that's as simple as choosing Roth or pre-tax, right? For this, if I look at their total income and I know they've been contributing to 403b, I'm going to ask, well, how much of your money actually went into 403b pre-tax or Roth? You know, these are just those additional things I'm going to be thinking about and kind of diving into to uncover additional rocks so I can find those details and make sure I have a better picture on the total package so I can ultimately give this couple the best advice going forward.
That's great. And you really teed it up nicely. So of course, if you need to, and you want to dig into some of those details that Patrick was mentioning, you can always go ahead and click view record on Holistiplan, and it'll take you right to that particular client's tax report, as long as you are logged in and the integration is set up. So, we always know that not everything can be solved in Asset-Map. We certainly love to support that conversation and have a great meeting tool, in this case, to reference all of this information. But you might need to jump in and get a little more granular within Holistiplan, which of course you can just jump right into, which is also great. All right, let's move on to our second use case. I love that first one. And I really learned from Patrick when we prepped that clients sometimes really just don't understand even their own income and the impact it makes and how it falls in with taxes, and also what a great point about stock options as well, because we hear that a lot. So just digging into what they actually have and not just maybe their actual income from their employer is so important. Okay, topic number 2. So Patrick, when you were looking at this, you had another thought as to how you could kind of work this into how you use target maps, our planning feature within Asset-Map, if you'd like to give us some context.
Yeah, for sure. So kind of stemming from that same conversation we just had around understanding our income and ultimately our tax rates and where we land in that is a lot of people, what I've found when I have that conversation around, well, how much do you need for retirement? A lot of people say, well, I make 220 today, so I'm expecting 220. And we all, as educated parties, know that's not really realistic or necessarily the reality of what they need, right? Because they might have 220 gross, if that is actually the number, but they have taxes coming out, they have health insurance premiums coming out, they have 401k, 403b, HSA, FSA, all the different types of pre-tax and post-tax deductions that do bring down their income to an actual net amount. So when I think about this and I look at understanding how I'm going to carry this into the target map structure, I'm looking at these marginal rates and the actual average rate or the effective tax rate on the federal level here. So the target map feature inside of Asset-Map is going to have typically a baseline 25% tax withholding rate just for their initial estimates. Again, make sure as you're catering this to your clients, go back in and tweak these numbers to be more realistic, right? Match it to your client to give the best kind of approximation for their situation. But if we go into the what you have feature here, number 2, where you're at, we built out a target map that shows, assuming their expected Social Security at age 65, expected pensions at age 65, plus 403b balances at age 65. From now until then, 5% net rate of return on capital. What could that look like in terms of their actual funding for retirement today? And this is, again, we haven't talked about their actual spending and those kind of things, what their burn rate is versus savings rate. That's another discussion we could get into as we uncover this. But if we just look at these actual line items, so if you highlight over, Allison, on the top section, we have the Social Security pension and pension kind of bundled together. If we go to the right, we can see with these projections inside the target map, what is the expected amount that might be lost to taxes? That's that second column from the right-hand side. So this is a really important thing where as we're building out this target map, and let's say you're doing it for the first time in front of a client, in front of a prospect, and I'm trying to show them, hey, here's the reality of where we are today. And you want to be realistic or maybe more conservative, you can also tweak it that direction, is we want to figure out, well, what is the potential marginal rate they're gonna be in. You could even plug in the actual effective rate. But Allison, if you want to just on the last one that says pension here, go into the edit feature on the right side, or yeah.
Sure.
So if you click on those little pencils, that's going to be your edit feature where you can always go in and actually change some of these assumptions, like what the start date is, what the end date is, the actual amounts, cost of living adjustment, or you could call that inflation, and then the tax rate here. So we know right now we have the baseline 25%, which is kind of the standard across the board. We could change that to say their 22% marginal rate. Or we could even, if we want to, adjust that for their effective rate, which is 10.8%. I'd say let's leave it at the marginal for now, because there's also state that would come into play depending on where they live. But you can see just by making that one change from 25 to 22%, that bumped their funding up by 1%, which might not seem like a lot, but that does have a big factor over the long term. And if we change, we can go ahead and change that on the pension as well, the second pension, and go to 22% there. And then we can drop down to the 403Bs and adjust those numbers and see how much of a change that has across the board.
Yeah, let's keep doing it. So again, it's super simple. And you can, of course, do this in the asset map report as well, folks. So, what we're changing here with Patrick is within the target maps, and it'll flow through, of course, but great suggestions on taking that data and popping it into asset map. So let's do this final one. Okay. So updated accordingly. And super, super simple. So that fact finding is not difficult in Asset-Map. So go ahead, Patrick.
Yeah. So, and I think that's the real thing we think about. It's not just about wealth accumulation. Like we're definitely the wealth development business. We're selling hope. We're selling confidence. We're selling clarity to our clients. That's ultimately how we build and retain successful client relationships. But the way we can do that is being more accurate and more precise with these numbers here. So if I'm thinking about even an example from here, we showed just getting those tax rates a little bit more dialed in with current tax rates today, that gave us 2% of extra funding overall. But if I'm thinking about, maybe wanting to model, well, what if, and this might be a more complicated thing for these people where they are today, but what if one of these 403Bs was Roth, right? If we actually change that to say this entire balance has actually been put away Roth, we've been doing Roth conversions over the years, and now it's just Roth money that's sitting there. If we scroll down, Allison, and let's pick the smaller balance one, the 144 on that, or yeah, and just change that to 0 to say it's a 0% tax rate, federal level. That right there is going to add more benefit, right? Now, it's not going to be as much of a benefit if we change all the pensions to tax-free, but I don't know what the status is of these pensions from their employers, right? So I'm not going to assume that on today's call. But it's a good way you can show people, well, what is the actual benefit of making some of these decisions early on, or even mid-career, late career? If we're going to change these things today, how is that going to impact you guys down the road? For me, the whole Roth one's a big one because I don't have a single client that wishes they had less tax-free money in retirement. Everybody wishes they had more tax-free money, right? More money to start with, more tax-free money secondly. So
yeah. And I think it's important too that you are showing that you are taking tax planning into consideration when you're building out their portfolios, right? It's so great. You guys do such a great job building out portfolios and listening to your clients on how they want to be invested. But that tax planning piece is now starting to come into play, right? As they're starting to retire, as they're starting to think about how are they going to start diversifying their funds for their, next 20, 30 years of their life, they need to know that you have taken in consideration what that tax, item looks like. My parents are a perfect example. Both are starting to retire. My mom retired a little earlier than she was planning, and my dad got bored and went back to work. So, there's that weird shift where my mom had to take part of her pension a little early. My dad stopped taking his. So like being able to tweak those accounts and knowing what their tax planning needs were really important. So even if you don't think that 2 or 3% is like a huge benefit, just just seeing it for your client, seeing that, oh, okay, it is okay if I'm doing this earlier. It's okay that, we stopped and started again on retirement planning. I think again, that open dialogue with your client is really big.
Yeah, and that's such a great example, personal example, Tori. if we went back to this example here, we said like maybe that the $40,000 a year future value pension for Paula is say a tax-free VA disability, and it's not like a
Mhm.
workplace pension. That's going to increase these numbers substantially. But one thing I think is important too is like I think there's kind of this fallacy in our industry that wealth management and tax planning and strategy is only for those that have money. But I have a great example of a client that I met with 2 weeks ago that I started working with a husband years ago. Ultimately, they got separated and divorced, and she ended up with a lot of his retirement assets based on the division and the negotiation through the split. And we've got like $400,000 in pre-tax IRA money and like 25 grand in a Roth account right now. She doesn't have any income aside from alimony, which is non-taxable at this point in time. So in our conversation a few weeks ago, going through her asset map, we reviewed where all the numbers are, where everything is. I said, hey, like, is this your only income source right now? She said, yeah, it's my only income. I said, let me see your tax return. So I loaded that up in Holistiplan and looked at the numbers. And just by doing that, I could see between the asset map and the Holistiplan there, we could just convert 15 grand a year until her income changes, just a standard deduction amount, convert that from her traditional to her Roth, $0 tax implication. Maybe some
Hmm.
like insurance credits based on the exchange and all that with Obamacare. But in terms of the federal tax side, $0 to convert 15 grand. And she
Wow.
doesn't make $300,000 a year. She's living on alimony today, right?
Hmm.
It's not a situation where you have to have high net worth, high income, high complexity situations to use these tools successfully. It can be your simple client that's just, hey, I'm trying to build wealth by starting with a Roth IRA. What's this going to look like 25 years from now? I love those conversations. It's super easy to give these examples and show people practically how that actually works in this tool.
I mean, what an amazing example. Both of you just offered up, I think, some great real life use cases that, people could really relate to when they're talking to their clients, I'm sure. And that's really what today's all about, letting people have some ideas. I'm sure a lot of you right now have ideas on how you can, improve your conversations that you're having by, loading these two up together. And, as a final topic, as far as just an idea, and it actually came from the Asset Map support team. So shout out to our amazing support team over at Asset Map. And I ran it by Patrick, and I think he agreed that it will definitely be something that can come up. But, there's something on this screen that we haven't talked about yet that I think is pretty valuable, which is the total tax payment that you made in 2023, which in this case is $25,233. That's not an insignificant amount of money. It might change year over year, depending on all the things we've talked about today and loading up your newest tax return. But certainly $25,000 plus might be something that a client will want to plan for and not just have sprung on them. And there's a cool feature in Asset Map that I just love to show on a webinar. So this is a bit selfish, but it's what I mentioned earlier, which is, you can take that tax amount and, maybe your client doesn't want that listed on their Asset Map. Maybe they do. There's now a way that you can say, well, rather than me as Patrick, the advisor, making an assumption that the client wants to see that cash flow, that expense for that year, I can actually pop up what we have called a draft in Asset Map. So this is a way, and you'll see as I hit draft and I choose add tax expense, really straightforward. You're going to see the background, throw up a draft watermark. You're going to now have a little bar at the bottom that's going to allow you to basically say, okay, I, as the advisor, have some ideas that I would love to run past my client visually in the Asset Map report, but not make it part of their actual Asset Map yet, because I want to have that discussion first. I want to see if they're on the same page as me. But you might notice that now there's a tax expense from the Holistiplan integration at what equals, for both client and spouse, $25,233. And this is a way that in the meeting, live with the client, we can say, I learned through, just working with my software here that, you had a tax expense of just over $25,000 last year. Is that something we want to throw on our Asset Map report to discuss how we might cover that for next year? And that was a suggestion, I guess, that our team, again, our internal team, they hear all the time, right? When people call into Asset Map, they're like, I would really like to throw the tax expenses on there to have that discussion with them. Patrick, do you see utility in that and kind of having those expenses listed out as well?
Yeah, I think the biggest case where I would see that is like a lot of business owner clients where they have estimated payments. Or even if, I mean, a lot of W-2 clients that I've had over the past few years, once the IRS changed the W-4 documents for withholdings a few years ago, it seemed like everybody had a balance due they weren't expecting. So for those situations where there's an estimated payment, options that are, coming to real or being vested or exercised, and those business owners with the quarterlies is like, hey, let's make sure we plan this out, hit our safe harbor minimums, keep that as part of that cash flow projections, so we can make sure that we're not missing that as we're stocking money away for retirement or putting money away for, other decisions as we go. I think there's a huge value there. Yeah.
That's great. So when I jumped in, so when you have that draft item, and it's pretty clear which one is the draft, it has the little plus sign next to it, letting us know that we added something new. I can click on the tax expense. It'll now have a little draft tab that we didn't have before. And that's where we can actually say, create cash flow. Let's implement this into the actual asset map report so that they're going forward. And, something that we maybe haven't said out loud, but I'm sure you'll understanding is, these are all things that we want to review every single year, every single, the cadence we have with our clients, especially after we have that new tax return loaded up from Holistiplan every year. So I can then just go ahead and hit create cash flow and get out of drafts. And magically, now it's on the real asset map report. So just another cool feature to run something by a client before making it official, I think is a really, really great feature, and something that it was highly requested before we added it in. So perfect timing. Tori, do we have any questions that we want to address? And I think, we might not be able to get to all of them. I don't know how many there are, but anything you'd like to highlight as far as questions that have come in?
Yeah, so Michael did ask, while you were adding the tax expense, did you add that manually, or was there somewhere where it pulled from the Holistiplan integration?
No, I just added it in manually. So I took the amount and I added in a cash flow expense, and I made it 50-50 owner on the client and spouse. Took me about, to Patrick's timing earlier, 17 seconds.
Yeah.
And then we have, can we change that tax to joint city? Niles, we'll get to that question. I'll answer that one. That one's a little bit more complicated, so we'll answer that one there. Heidi, I see your question about getting the subscription. You have two different subscribers. So I need to check with the team and the asset map team. So I'll follow up with an email for you on that one. Bob asked, how does Asset Map get its data from a tax return? Small basic tax returns don't list / identify various sources of investment / savings data. I think what he's asking is how are you guys getting that data for the tile? And that data is actually coming from Holistiplan's tax report. So on the tax report, at the very top, we have a key figures box. And it's basically a copy of that key figures box with a couple of other extra items listed there. So that's where that data is coming from.
Yeah, we didn't get into the details, but that's all just an API integration that we chose. Some of the what we decided were the really important pieces that you might want to discuss in a meeting, especially with a client that is coming directly from the Holistiplan application after that tax return has been loaded up to Holistiplan. So just your average API integration that is grabbing that data over from Holistiplan that has come in from the tax return, or other ways, but this is coming right from the Holistiplan API.
Yeah, maybe to add to that, just from my experience. So like
Sure.
all those numbers are coming from the 1040 primarily. Like for the most part, that's coming from your 1040 document. If it is a smaller basic tax return, like the question asked, all that will be there because it's on the 1040. If it's a more complicated tax return, like Schedule E, all that other stuff, that information would also be captured and pulled into the calculations.
Oh, great. That was super helpful. Thank you.
Yeah.
Anything else we'd like to highlight, Tori?
Someone asked about the recording going out. Yes, the recording will be going out. Yes, the slides will be going out. So in the next day or so, we'll get that out to you. There's a Raymond James question from John here, Allison, so I'll send that to you later. Sure. Lots of questions on on Asset Maps integrations with like Black Diamond and Redtail. How do they interact? Do they interact the same way as the Holistiplan one? So I know as an outsider looking in from Asset-Map, their integrations are always incredible. They really do a great job listening to the advisor. So those integrations are a little bit more in depth because you are talking about more in depth data that needs to come through. Not saying that the Holistiplan one won't get there. This is version 1 of this one. So Alex, if there is more questions about the integrations, I'm sure the Asset-Map team will be able to dig in deeper there. But I know, again, those integrations are much larger, much more in depth than the Holistiplan one is currently.
I don't want to say that they're they're more valuable though, because this integration is doing something totally different. And that's really why we're so excited. You know, there is a huge utility in being able to pull, let's use Black Diamond as another example. That will create some of these asset map boxes that you see here, right? Anything you have under management that has a value, it's going to go ahead and pull it in. It's going to create these boxes that you see here. Like I said, Black Diamond, for example, and it's going to give you the updated values. I can refresh those as well. Maybe I can see some top 10 holdings like I can with Black Diamond, all very, very valuable. However, that's not taking you to the next level with planning like the Holistiplan integration is. So they're two very different things. Neither is more valuable than the other. I think why we're so excited about the Holistiplan integration, again, is twofold. It's helping us do better planning. It's helping us bring tax into the conversation right in the asset map, which is a huge request. But it can layer on so nicely, like I mentioned earlier, with a Black Diamond integration, with a or with a nitrogen integration, with a Schwab integration, because those data integrations are going to load up the asset map report, give you the values, give you those boxes nicely filled out so you don't have to key them in. And then you layer on Holistiplan and you can talk about tax. So I think selfishly, that's why I'm super excited, is because this integration that we're talking about today will pair so nicely with some of the other ones that we have that will actually pre-build this asset map report for you. It's going to be just absolutely killer. I'm thinking about all the great integrations webinars we could do in the future, Tori, with some of our, good vendor friends that are joint integration partners with us.
Yeah, and I've got a lot of questions in here as how much the integration costs. We do not charge for integrations, and I believe Asset-Map is the same way. So our integration between the two firms is completely free. It's included in your subscriptions with us both. So there is no, if you turn it on and you don't use it, don't feel like you're going to get charged for it. So it is free. Bob wanted to ask about integrations with Fidelity and Vanguard. Currently, Holistiplan is not integrated with either one of those. I'm not sure if Asset-Map had those listed as well. So he wanted to get that answered. But currently, Holistiplan is not integrated with either.
Same here. We're always, like Tori had mentioned, both teams are always happy to talk to you about the details of how we can really help you make the integration sing in your own practice. And, while there might not be, for example, at Asset-Map a Fidelity integration, there are plenty of places that that data typically flows in from. So our team is always happy to help you make the most of our integration opportunities. And like Tori said, they're not charged for by either team, which is great. You can absolutely utilize them with your current subscription. We urge you to because we are so proud of them, and they're clearly a lot of work for our development teams as well. So the more the merrier who are loading these up. And I know we're coming up on time, so I want to make sure that everybody has a way to get in contact with us if they have any questions. It's been just absolutely phenomenal working with the Holistiplan team. Not only do I get to do presentations with my good friend Tori and my new friend Patrick, and I think today was really fun, but we really, I think, are nicely suited to work together as two different companies that are really providing a great solution to you all. And that being said, we're also offering up some discounts. So if you're interested in either platform, we are offering a 15% discount to get signed up through either system. So if you come to us from Holistiplan, we're going to give you the benefit of getting a 15% discount to Asset-Map and vice versa. This page, Tori, if you want to, here, I'll put it in the chat for everyone. This is a way that you can get in contact with everybody. Oh, I can't. Tori, I'm going to send it to you and then you can send it out.
Yep.
So this link, it's just asset-map.com/holistiplan, will get you where you need to go to really get to either team. So you can link out to Holistiplan from here as well. And, we're always happy to talk to you. Asset-Map is also running an end of the month promotion, so you can get a bit of a double whammy. But if you are interested in Asset-Map and sign up by the end of the month, I believe that's Sunday, you're going to get a month free in your subscription as well. So we've got lots of promos going on at Asset-Map right now, which is not something that happens all the time. But going forward, post this month, certainly take advantage of the discount between Asset-Map and Holistiplan because we're just super, super excited about this relationship. Tori, anything else you would add? And then let's have a final word from Patrick as well.
No, yeah, thank you again. Thank you both for joining us. Patrick, I apologize for stumbling not only over your name, but your firm. I can't believe I even biffed it. It's a post-it note on my screen staring at me. So, but appreciate you both for being here. I know Allison and I are so grateful for your time, taking the time out to speak to everyone on this call. So just appreciate you both for joining me today.
Yeah, for sure. No, thank you all so much for having me and just giving me the opportunity to help out and show people how I think and how we use the platforms together. And I think it's a great marriage, great partnership here between the companies, and looking forward to what will continue to come to serve us as advisors as we serve our clients.
Thank you both.
Thanks, everyone. Bye.